In this lesson, we'll learn about the while and do while iteration statements. So right off the bat, you might be wondering, what's the difference and why would I prefer one of the iteration statements, the for iteration statement, over the others? So with the for iteration statement, it makes sense whenever you need a predefined number of iterations through a block of code, because you set up the beginning value of the counter, you increment the counter or decrement it, and then you check the condition, and usually that involves the counter. Is I less than 10? If so, continue to iterate. If not, break out of the code block. The while statement is a little bit different. It only checks an expression, and so it's up to you to determine the number of times that you'll iterate through the code block, and it's usually the code that's inside the code block is what affects the number of iterations through the block of code. All right, and so an example would be very helpful here. You can see that I have the starting point for a project, CS-ASP_027. You know the routine, where to find it, how to catch up with me, and get to this point. And so I have the beginnings of a little game, a text-based adventure between a hero and a monster. Okay, and so they both have an initial health. Also, hey, look at this. I'm using this random object. This is going to create a random number for me, which is great for games, right? It's probably the only situation where you'd ever need a random number. But I'm going to randomly decide how much damage that the hero causes to the monster and how much damage the monster causes to the hero until one of them wins and the other one dies. Okay, and so what we're going to do is first of all allow the hero to have a first attack, a major attack, and then we'll print this off in a result string. Now here's where we need to do some of the logic, and we're going to use the while statement and the do while statements to perform that logic in just a moment. But to continue on to kind of set up this example, if the hero wins, if the hero's health is greater than 0 at the end of the battle, then the hero wins, otherwise the monster wins. Okay? And then we'll print that out in the result label. So very simple, but what we want to do here, where I have this little comment that we need battle logic, what I'll do is create a while statement. So you can see that when I type the word while, we get the little window off to the left-hand side in IntelliSense telling us that this is there's a code snippet available for this. So if I hit tab, you can see that it creates a very simple structure for us, especially compared to the for iteration statement. Here we're only going to evaluate the expression inside of the parentheses. Now, if you set this to true, it will never break out unless you call the break statement like we learned about when we were learning about the for, which is definitely an option. But typically what you want to do in here is to evaluate some expression that's meaningful to your application. So in our case, what we want to do is we're going to make sure that two things are true before we continue on with the battle sequence. What we'll do inside of here is to make sure that the hero's health is greater than 0 and that the monster's health is greater than 0. Now, if that's not true, then we're no longer battling because one of them will be dead, or both, potentially, I guess. And so what we'll do in here is actually determine the damage that the hero causes and the damage that the monster causes using that random class that I saw just a moment ago. So hero damage equals random.next, and this is how you get another random number from the random class. Just call random.next. You give it the lower boundary and the upper boundary, so between 1 and 10. And then we'll do the same with the monster damage, the damage that each of them cause, .next, and we'll go, the monster can cause more damage, let's say, in this particular example. All right, let's fix that. Now, next what we need to do is let this damage affect the health of the hero and the monster. So the monster's health is going to be minus equal the hero damage, and vice versa. The hero's health is going to minus equal the monster's damage, like so. All right. And then finally what we want to do is actually print these values to screen. Now, I don't want to take the time to type all this out, so I'm just going to copy and paste this from my notes here, and you can catch up with me if you want to. All right. So we're going to create this result string. Actually, we've already declared it up here in line number 19. So we're just going to add to it as we iterate through our battle sequence. And you'll notice that in the very first round, it's set to 0. So this is where the hero gets the first bonus attack, okay? But now what we do, instead of going round plus plus, which will evaluate the value of round and then add 1 after this line of code executes, what we want to do is actually go plus plus round. And what this does, this variation, it will perform the addition first before the line of code executes. So play around with this and see the difference in the output between round plus plus and plus plus round. And what that's going to do is essentially going to increase 0 to 1 and then concatenate that to our string and then use that value. Okay? Very cool. Then on the next two lines, lines number 41 and 42, we're merely just saying the hero causes so many points of damage, leaving the monster with so much health. The monster causes so much damage, leaving the hero with 1 health. Okay. So I think the most important thing about the while statement to realize here is that the conditions that we're actually checking are affected by what is going on inside of the code block. All right. Let's go ahead and run the application, and it's going to be different every time we run it because of the random class. But you can see what the output will look like. All right, you can see here that in this particular case, the very first time that the hero attacks, he destroys the monster. It doesn't even make it into the battle sequence, the while statement. And so we're going to look at how to correct that in just a moment. The monster should get at least some attempt to cause damage to the hero at least one time. So we'll come back to that notion in a minute. Let's run this again and see if we keep getting kind of the same. There we go. This is a little more interesting battle. The hero attacks first, leaving the monster with 3 health. Then the hero proceeds to damage, cause 4 more points of damage. The monster, before he dies, causes the hero 4 damage, leaving him with 26 health, and so the hero wins this time. But if you keep running this, we'll get various results. Now, I've already highlighted one of the problems with this, and this logic might work correctly for my game. But say, for example, I want to give the monster at least a shot at causing some damage to the hero before he goes down and dies. In that case, we want to use the do while. So we're going to start with the word do, and then I'm going to hit tab, and this will show you the little code snippet for the do while statement. And so what happens in this particular case, and what's different from the while and the do while, is that this block of code is guaranteed to execute at least once before the condition is checked for the first time. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do is just copy all of the code from here. So Control C. Everything else is going to be equal, and I'm also going to use the same condition that we used before. All right, and we may have to run this a couple of times to kind of demonstrate the what actually will happen, but just remember back to the first time we ran the application. Here, the hero got to kill the monster never even got an attack. But if that happens with the do while, at least the monster can cause some damage to the hero, at least once before it breaks out of the loop. So let's go ahead and run the application. We could hard code this and take the variability out of the equation if we just can't get it to work right. All right, so the hero attacks first, leaving the monster with 1 health, and then the battle sequence starts. Let's run it again, and let's see it until we get a situation where, all right, here we go. This is perfect. So the hero attacks first, killing the monster, essentially, leaves him with minus 27 health. And yet, the monster still gets a chance to attack the hero because this code block gets to execute at least one time. Okay? So that is the fundamental difference between the for and the while and do whiles, and then the difference between the while and the do while, the little nuance difference between the two. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful. We'll go ahead and create a cheat for this, and then we'll move on. Thanks.